Unbelievable. He took his mistress down the Tech Awards red carpet, leaving his pregnant wife alone in a cold Palo Alto house. The flashbulbs from San Jose exploded across the television screen, searing into Brianni's tear-blurred eyes. Her hand clutched her belly, as if holding on to the last shred of faith in the face of public humiliation. But in that darkest moment, a memory flickered. The black business card of Donovan Knight, the tech billionaire, who once saw the vision of smart green cities in her sketches. The first sound was not a sob, but the clatter of a takeout box sliding off the counter, hitting the tiled floor, its lid popping open, letting the smell of cold pasta spill into the vast Palo Alto kitchen. On the wall-mounted television, flashbulbs flickered in rapid succession, capturing Elias and Katrina hands clasped as they walked the red carpet at the Tech Innovators Awards. The whole house was drowned in silence, broken only by the hollow laughter bleeding from the screen, hammering into Brianni's ears like blows. She collapsed onto the floor, back against the bar stool, her breath ragged. In an instant, everything around her became a kind of glass prison. Italian leather chairs, crystal chandeliers, granite counters, all the things Elias once bragged about. Now, nothing more than props in a life she no longer controlled. She bent forward, hand on her belly. A small kick made her freeze. The child seemed to whisper, "Don't give up." Brianni forced herself up, staggering on trembling legs. She passed the living room, where a Steinway piano sat under a thin coat of dust, the instrument Elias had once promised to learn with her but never touched. In the pale LED glow, her reflection on the glass wall looked faded, like a background character in her own story. A flash of dark humor crossed her mind. If a filmmaker were here, this scene could slip neatly into a trailer for some Silicon Valley tragedy. The abandoned wife, the television broadcasting her husband with his mistress, while she clutched her belly in a cold, cavernous house. But this wasn't a movie. This was real life, where public humiliation had already become breaking news. She dragged herself into the study, every wall still covered with architectural sketches and diagrams of the smart green cities she once poured her heart into. Years ago, Brianni had presented the idea of transforming abandoned neighborhoods into sustainable communities where technology and nature worked together. The board had dismissed her, but one man had stayed behind, Donovan Knight. The secretive tech billionaire, eyes cool yet unmistakably lit when he saw her passion. He had left her only a matte black business card embossed in silver and a single line, "Call me when the world forgets your vision." She pulled open the bottom drawer, sifting through old papers, notebooks, and trinkets. Her shaking hand brushed against the familiar textured card, Donovan Knight Tech Visionary. The silver letters glimmered in the dark. Her heartbeat thundered. Part of her was afraid. How could a discarded wife call one of the most powerful men in America? But braided through that fear was a thread of hope. Maybe this was the moment. She picked up her phone. Fingers slid across the screen, entering the numbers. Each dial tone stretched out like a countdown. 1 second, 2, 3. She nearly let it go when the line suddenly clicked alive. A warm, steady voice filled the room, clear as if it pierced straight through the thick glass walls. "Mrs. Sloan? I remember. What do you need?" Brianni closed her eyes, her breathing sharp, tears streaming down her cheeks. Just those 2 words, "I remember," were enough to pull her back from the edge. In that cold Palo Alto house, surrounded by betrayal made public and unspeakable pain, she suddenly felt a single line tethering her to a world that had almost collapsed. The black delivery box stamped with the logo of a Silicon Valley stylist company sat on Brianni's doorstep as if it were nothing more than an ordinary Amazon package. But when the lid was lifted, inside wasn't an evening gown, not sequins glittering like those at New York fashion galas. Instead, it was a pristine white jumpsuit, sleek, modern, at once strong and elegant. Brianni let her fingers brush over the fabric, the coolness spreading across her fingertips. It wasn't the kind of material made for show, but for women who needed to move, to act, to shine on their own terms. It felt like new armor, unflashy, yet sharp. Donovan hadn't chosen a ball gown. He had chosen for her the attire of a female founder. The stylist had left a handwritten note. Less spectacle, more statement. She gave a small laugh, a smile, tinged with bitterness, but also like a crack that let light seep through. Bryony stood before the full-length mirror in the Palo Alto bedroom. Overhead lights spilled down, reflecting the white fabric hugging her 7 months pregnant body. Not concealing, but elevating the bump as a focal point. She no longer tried to hide it, no longer shrank away. This body was a living testament to creation, to resilience. On the vanity, a small wooden box lay open. Inside, her mother's pearl necklace rested quietly, each bead yellowed slightly with time. It didn't glitter like diamonds, didn't shout like emeralds, but held the memory of hands that once guided her through childhood. Bryony clasped the pearls around her neck. In the mirror, the pearls fused with the white jumpsuit, at once simple and commanding, shaping an image unmistakable, not Elias's wife, not a deceived mistress, but a curator of futures. The makeup artist Donovan Scent worked silently, only breaking the quiet with gentle questions. A thin layer of foundation defined her features. A touch of shimmer at her eyes made her gaze sharper, more awake. Her hair was pulled back into a low bun, uncomplicated yet refined. When the final layer of lipstick pressed against her lips, Bryony inhaled deeply. She no longer recognized herself, or perhaps for the first time, she truly did. In a flash, she remembered Katrina from the night before. Metallic dress clinging tight, camera flashes bouncing like a cheap shell. Bryony laughed again, this time clearer, without bitterness but with recognition. Shells crack. Only truth endures. She stepped back a few paces, spun once before the mirror. The white fabric swayed with her, not hiding the pregnancy but exalting it, like a moon's orbit. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling a small kick, as if the child too agreed. Mom is ready. Outside, Palo Alto's noon sun fell across tree-lined streets, its light cutting through the windows to scatter across the wooden floor. Dust motes floated in the air like dancers in a silent ballet. Bryony saw them, and for the first time in months, she thought the sight was beautiful, because inside her, there was no longer only darkness. A sleek, black, electric car waited in the driveway. The driver, in a gray suit, opened the door, saying nothing. Bryony walked forward, her steps firm. Each heel striking the ground felt like notes in a score, carrying her out of her old role into a new chapter. On the seat inside, an envelope lay neatly placed. Inside was an invitation to the Tech Innovators Awards, but this time not under Elias's name. It read, Bryony Sloan, Guest of Honor. She ran her fingers over the italic letters, lips curving in a quiet smile. Not Elias's wife, just her name. As the car rolled forward, Bryony gazed out the window at the towering tech headquarters rising like fortresses of steel and glass. Yet, instead of intimidation, a strange calm filled her. In the heart of Silicon Valley, she was no longer an outsider. She was moving toward the very stage Elias once thought she didn't belong to. She whispered, not aloud but like a thought resonating within, pregnancy is not a burden, it is a declaration. Dear audience, grab a glass of water, take a moment to relax, and keep listening to the story. The twists are still to come. And please drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a joy to see who's joining us from around the world. Drop a 1 in the comments if you find this story gripping, so we can keep bringing you more captivating tales. The first sound wasn't the triumphant music of the event, but the sharp click of the revolving glass door swinging open. Metal struck marble, sending a cold chime echoing through the San Jose Convention Center. Hundreds of eyes turned toward it. On the red carpet, blazing under rows of LED lights and camera flashes, a silhouette emerged. Bryony stepped forward in a pristine white jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a low bun, her pearl necklace glinting beneath the chandeliers. Her 7 months pregnant belly wasn't hidden but lifted proudly, like a silent crown. Beside her was Donovan Knight, tall, solid, moving with a certainty that felt as if he were leading an army, not just accompanying one woman. His presence was rare enough, a reclusive tech billionaire almost never seen at public events. Yet tonight, he was walking side by side with the woman Silicon Valley believed had been erased from the game. Cameras erupted like lightning. A reporter's mic, left on by mistake, carried his whisper across the hall. "Who's that with Knight?" The crowd stirred. At the far end of the carpet, Elias Fallner and Katrina Bell were still posing for the press. Elias, in a midnight blue tuxedo, lifted his hand in a wave, then froze. The trademark smile froze too, cracking under the chandelier's glare. His hand, resting lightly on Katrina's waist, went stiff. Katrina, sensing the shift of every gaze, clawed at Elias's arm, her painted nails biting deep into the fabric. For a few seconds, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Gone were the cheers for startup pitches, the applause for unicorn valuations. Only a dense silence remained. And that silence was the sharpest declaration of all. Bryony said nothing. She didn't need to. Every step was a statement. The Elon-type CEOs, the venture capitalists in glossy suits, the seasoned tech journalists who thought they'd seen every twist all turned fully toward her. Flashbulbs washed her face, sharpening every line. Eyes no longer wet with tears, but gleaming like metal forged in fire. She held her head high, her hand steady on Donovan's arm. Each step tore open the line between the abandoned and the ascendant. A memory flickered just last night. She was on the kitchen floor, food spilled around her. And now, within a single day, she was at the very center of Silicon Valley, a stage Elias thought reserved only for him and his mistress. A faint smile tugged at her lips, not arrogance, but like a sly grace note in a tense symphony. In the press rows, cameras no longer pointed at Elias and Katrina. Every lens hunted Bryony. In just a few shutter clicks, the narrative flipped. Elias was no longer the centerpiece. Katrina was no longer Silicon Valley's new face. The spotlight had shifted to the woman whose name had been erased from the invitation. Donovan walked slowly, evenly. He didn't drag Bryony forward, nor did he overshadow her. He matched her pace like an equal ally. In a world where a single handshake could be worth millions, this open-handed alliance carried weight beyond contracts. Elias tried to salvage composure. He forced a laugh, bent to whisper something in Katrina's ear, but the lenses ignored him. Whispers ran through the crowd. "She looks radiant. That's his wife, isn't it? Unbelievable. She's stunning." Katrina clenched her teeth, her glare fixed on Bryony like daggers. Yet the harder she strained, the more she looked like a faded shadow in an overdone metallic dress. Bryony and Donovan stopped at the carpet's edge, where every light converged. Her belly glowed beneath the white fabric, a moon suspended against Silicon Valley's blazing sky. It was no longer the burden Elias once suggested. It was the symbol of power, creation, and a new beginning. For a heartbeat, Bryony's gaze locked with Elias's. No hatred, no reproach, just a sharp line drawn. She no longer belonged on his stage. She had her own. The hall erupted in flashes and murmurs. Journalists scrambled with notes. A Bloomberg editor leaned to a colleague and whispered, "Forget Elias. Tonight belongs to Sloan." And in that exact moment, the balance of power shifted. The pounding drumbeats opened the climax of the Tech Innovators Awards. Stage lights swept across the room, forming a brilliant circle of illumination in the center of the auditorium. The audience held their breath. The host, dressed in a deep velvet blue suit, held the microphone and smiled with ceremonial grace. And now, the visionary of the year. In the front row, Elias Fallner adjusted his tie, a familiar gesture he had practiced hundreds of times in front of the mirror. Everything was meticulously prepared. The signature smile, eyes gleaming with confidence, and Katrina sitting proudly beside him like an expensive accessory. In Elias's calculations, this night would end with him walking onto the stage, accepting the award, and cementing himself as the center of Silicon Valley. But then, something unexpected happened. Donovan Knight stood up. He didn't wait for the host to announce the name, nor did he give Elias a chance to rise. His black tuxedo hugged his frame under the lights as he stepped forward slowly but deliberately. He didn't need an escort. Simply by standing, Donovan sent a shockwave through the entire room. The host froze. The introduction caught in his throat. Cameras immediately pivoted. A wave of whispers spread across the seats. "Knight, what's he doing?" Donovan raised his hand, not waiting for the microphone to be handed over. He took it from the host with such natural authority that no one dared intervene. There was no script, no scrolling text on the LED screens behind him. There was only him, the lights, and the dense silence of a room filled with power. His voice was deep and clear, echoing to every corner. "Tonight, I pledge $15 million to launch the Sloan Smart Cities Initiative, turning abandoned urban blocks into sustainable, tech-powered communities. This is not my vision. This is Brienne Sloan's vision." In that instant, the room erupted. Thunderous applause, a storm of cheers punctuated by the relentless staccato of camera flashes. Some reporters even hurriedly jumped from their seats to dash into the hallway, sending breaking news to their editors. The name Sloan, the very name Elias had tried to erase from every invitation, every guest list, every press release, now resonated throughout the room, placed at the center of the spotlight by Donovan Knight himself. Flashes illuminated Bryony's face. She sat quietly, hand resting on her belly, eyes steady and radiant. Every lens focused on her, capturing the image of a pregnant woman sitting beside one of the most powerful billionaires, no longer just the shadow of Fallner's wife, but the founder of the initiative bearing her own name. Elias froze. The microphone he had been ready to grab suddenly felt useless. His signature smile stiffened and slid off his face. He swallowed hard, throat dry. In one night, the glory he had coveted had been snatched away, not through direct confrontation, but with a $15 million commitment and a name he had once dismissed. Katrina whispered something beside him, but no one noticed. Cameras didn't turn toward her. No journalist directed a microphone in her direction. The world was revolving around a different name. Donovan paused for a few seconds, letting the applause swell, then subtly leaned toward Bryony, as if silently introducing her with undeniable weight. "This is the woman tonight belongs to." The audience rose, applause stretching on. Some veteran CEOs, seasoned investors, even nodded as if witnessing an irreversible change of power. At the press row, editors pounded on laptops. "Knight launches Sloan Initiative with $15 million pledge. Pregnant founder steals spotlight at Tech Awards. Forget Fallner. Tonight belongs to Sloan." On stage, Donovan set down the microphone. No further words needed. He was not a showy hero. One declaration, one financial pledge, one name enough to shake Silicon Valley to its core. Bryony rose. No invitation, no introduction. Yet every eye cleared a path for her. Her white jumpsuit shimmered under the lights, her baby bump forming a luminous circle. She did not speak at length. She simply bowed her head slightly, hand resting on the pearl necklace at her neck, a legacy from her mother, intertwined with her vision for the future. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then the applause surged again, this time like an endless firework. No one remembered Elias standing there, microphone in hand. He had become a mere shadow, right where he thought he would be honored. That night, Visionary of the Year was not just a paper accolade, but a title etched into the memory of hundreds of witnesses. And the name attached to it, Sloan, had officially stepped into the heart of Silicon Valley. The dawn in the Bay Area had barely lifted the morning fog when the bold headline on TechCrunch's front page swept across social media. From betrayed wife to smart city founder, Sloan steals the night. The article featured a photo of Bryony in a white jumpsuit, her pregnant belly glistening under the camera flashes, walking beside Donovan Knight. No sensational title was needed. The image spoke for itself. A woman once erased from invitations now stood at the heart of Silicon Valley, the face of a multi-million-dollar initiative. Bloomberg didn't mince words. Board removes Elias Fallner after Knight backs Sloan Initiative. A single sentence, yet it read like a death sentence for the career Elias had painstakingly built. The startup community buzzed with whispers. Private founder group chats flooded with messages. Fallner's out. Unbelievable. Knight didn't just invest in Sloan, he buried Elias. This is a new playbook for women in tech. Meanwhile, Twitter raged like a storm. An anonymous account began leaking emails. Katrina Bell, Mistress turned partner, exposed for falsifying client data. Dry passages detailed manipulated numbers, beautified reports, and pressure on engineering teams to fix dashboards for pitches. Within hours, the word Mistress became inseparable from another: fraud. Memes proliferated. Katrina in a metallic dress with the caption, "Accessory Bell, from startup queen to liability." The internet turned its back, transforming the glamour she tried to craft into a collective spectacle. In a silent Palo Alto penthouse, Elias sat frozen. His laptop glowed brightly, inbox overflowing. Among hundreds of headlines, a single email from the board appeared on top. Effective immediately, your position as CEO is terminated. No comforting words. No farewell. Just stark, unembellished lines. The man who once thought himself irreplaceable had been removed overnight. Elias gripped a whiskey glass, his trembling hand spilling amber liquid across the table. The penthouse mirror reflected a pale face, the once tenacious brand smile now a cracked mask. The apartment, once a symbol of power, echoed only cold emptiness. And Katrina? Her phone buzzed endlessly, not with event invitations, but with mocking messages, contract cancellations, and lawyer threats. On the mirror, the red lipstick she had applied the night before now smeared, resembling an irreparable crack. The woman who once commanded the red carpet now sat on the floor, staring at her Twitter feed as her name plummeted in public opinion. A few miles away, in a quiet Mountain View cafe, Briani sat in a corner. Outside, reporters jostled, lenses pointed at her. Inside, the air was warm and simple. A steaming cappuccino before her, the creamy aroma mingling with espresso. Briani placed her hand on her belly, feeling the tiny heartbeat within. Her eyes softened, no longer lined with the red of sleepless nights, but clear, filled with peace. A nearby patron whispered, astonished, "That's her, the founder." Another replied, full of admiration. She turned betrayal into vision. A fleeting smile touched Briani's lips. She knew the road ahead would still bring storms, but for now she had stepped out of the shadows, standing firmly in the light, and this time the light belonged to her. Outside, the tech world was changing overnight, and at the center of the media storm, one name was etched in history: Sloan. The first sound wasn't the click of cameras, but the rustle of magazines being stacked on shelves. A Fifth Avenue bookstore glowed in the morning light of a new month as employees carefully displayed the latest issue of Forbes Women on the front, and there, on the cover, Briani Sloan. In a white jumpsuit, her rounded, celebrated belly on full display, she stood under the studio lights as if she were the source of the illumination herself. Bold letters stretched across the page. Pregnancy didn't stop her startup, it fueled it. Passers-by paused. A few women in business suits grabbed copies, exchanging glances full of motivation. A young mother walking her child smiled as she saw Briani's belly on the cover, her eyes lighting up with the belief that she too could. The feature spanned several pages, written in confident prose. Briani Sloan proves that motherhood and entrepreneurship aren't rivals, but partners in innovation. The words spread like a new manifesto for Silicon Valley, once a place that doubted the compatibility of pregnancy and launching a startup. Now, Briani was no longer called Elias Fallner's wife. On paper, in the media, and in the hearts of the community, she was recognized with 3 titles: founder, curator, mother. Meanwhile, in the Bronx, the Sloan Smart Cities project officially broke ground. Gray walls now gleamed with children's graffiti, sunflowers and doves sprouting from broken bricks. Architecture students from Columbia and NYU poured in, carrying laptops, 3D models, and dreams they'd never before been allowed to try. A neighborhood once abandoned now buzzed with hammering, laughter, and hip-hop spilling from portable speakers. Amid it all, Briani stood in a white hard hat, her hand gently resting on her belly. She didn't need a microphone. She didn't need a long speech. Her presence alone transformed the moment into a symbol of rebirth. Cameras captured it all. A pregnant founder, standing at the heart of a construction site, leading an entire community. And Elias? His name was slowly disappearing from the tech world. The bored emails that once echoed with his name were silent. On LinkedIn, his profile now read consultant, hollow and empty, and the congratulatory messages he once received had vanished. He sat in a rented apartment in Menlo Park, staring blankly at Forbes, hands gripping a lukewarm coffee cup without thought. A lifetime of glory replaced in just one season of headlines. And Katrina? On Twitter, her new nickname spread, Data Queen of Fraud. Tech events refused her name. Friends gradually withdrew. She became a laughingstock across Silicon Valley, from private startup group chats to mocking Instagram memes. The once radiant aura now lay empty, with threatening lawyer emails waiting in her inbox. In contrast, Brienne hadn't just reclaimed her dignity, she had redefined it. From a forsaken wife, she turned betrayal into a springboard, pregnancy into a symbol of power. Every step she took was a historical counterstrike against prejudice. That afternoon, in her small Brooklyn apartment, Brienne sat by the window, reading the Forbes feature once more. Her finger traced the words, pregnant and powerful. The baby inside kicked gently, as if in agreement. A tired but proud smile spread across her lips. Outside, Sloan Initiative signs were rising across multiple boroughs. Emails began flooding in from other cities, Chicago, Detroit, even London. Everyone wanted a piece of the vision. And you, my dear audience, brace yourselves for the next twist in this jaw-dropping story. So, before you get too cozy, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're truly loving what I'm doing here. And drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always a thrill to see who's joining us from all corners of the globe.